What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And I want to talk about Dead Island 2 here. And I downloaded the 2 hour trial for this game. And one thing I would really like to put in here, real quick, this game is actually pretty good. I'm enjoying the combat so far. The story is pretty lackluster in a way, but it is cheesy. And I think that's what made the original Dead Islands great, to my personal opinion. But what I really want to discuss here about the systems of this game, the melee system is very similar to that of the original Dead Islands, opposite that of the Dying Light series. But however, when it comes to Dead Island 2, this game is it's pretty unique in its own unique way because it has a sort of type of skills card system, and it provides of what character that you're playing as. And I really can't go in with the character because or the characters in this game because I chose Jacob. I think that's what his name was, and I actually like him to a certain degree. It has nothing to do because of his ethnicity. It's the fact that of what his skill set is, and what I really like about Jacob right now so far is the fact that he has the utilization of that of a combat critical hit scenario. And I like that because I like getting those extra critical hits. And it's one of the greatest reasons why I chose him, though, too, is because it's not because of his critical hits. It's the fact that he has really good resiliency. He does have really good toughness to him as well. And that is one thing what I really greatly like about this game so far. You know, I have not sunk in 2 hours in this game just yet. But what I'm really gradually taking this game is the fact that it's really cool of the system that this game really provides. And what I mean by that is the fact that what this game shows off and how long that this game was in total developmental hell until it finally released last year, which was actually quite amazing and remarkable at the same time because a lot of people thought that this game was going to be canceled. And I actually thought it was going to be canceled at first as well because, like I said, it was going through a lot of different types of direction in a matter of, when this game is going to be coming out within the next 5 to 6 years. And it finally came out last year, and I'm really heavily surprised of where this game actually goes. And this game takes place in LA, Los Angeles. Basically, it's a Los Angeles type of parody, and I think that this game really does a really good job of utilizing that atmosphere. And I think when it comes to the original Dead Islands, opposite that of LA basically or Los Angeles in Dead Island 2, this game really shows off the mechanics of what the original Dead Islands do. And that's another thing I greatly appreciate when it comes to that type of nostalgia feeling to it. And Dead Island 2 actually really captures that really well, in my personal opinion, as well. And that is one of the reasons why I greatly appreciate a game that follows of what the original predecessors were able to do. And while Dead Island and Dead Island Riptide are fairly old, they still hold up today as well in 2024 because I was initially playing those games not too long ago as well, and I do want to make videos on those games at some point. But overall, I think Dead Island 2 does a really good job with its systems. I really like the way what the systems are able to provide in this game when it comes to, being able to switch through different types of weapons. Obviously, much like what Dead Island games were able to do, and Riptide, and the Dying Light series, which are absolutely excellent, by the way. And that's where this game really it borrows so much from what the original Dead Islands were able to pertain in terms of its combat systems and what those systems are able to provide into Dead Island 2. And I think that's why I really greatly appreciate this game too as a whole. And it's the reason why I love these games. And specifically, like I said, it's the Dead Islands, it's the Dying Lights, and what the Dead Island games were able to provide, and how not just because of how old they were, but those games still hold up. I really do think so. And so what I'm saying is that when it comes to Dead Island 2, though, I think Dead Island 2 captures a lot of things from what the Dead Island series does, and what the Dying Light games were able to provide as well in terms of its combat systems and its parkour mechanics and systems as well. And I think that's where Dead Island 2 really doesn't just borrow from what the Dead Island games were able to use or and pertain and to utilize those types of systems as a whole in combat scenarios. But that's where the fulcrum of what the Dead Island games were so important when it came to modifying your weapons and utilizing those modifications on your weapons, much like from what the Dead Island games were able to provide and utilize, and much what the Dying Light games were able to utilize in combat scenarios as well. And it's the reason why I think when it comes to Dead Island 2, though, Dead Island 2 really shows off the fidelity with its visual artistic design. And as I previously mentioned in most of my videos, I talk a lot about the visual artistic design when it comes to any kind of game. It doesn't really matter what kind of game it is, really. And so I think Dead Island 2 really capitulates and really captures Los Angeles in a apocalyptic in a zombie apocalyptic type of state. And this game really captures that perfectly. And I think that's where Dead Island and Dead Island Riptide were able to do. It was fantastic of their time, and they still are. And I think that's where the nostalgia factor really comes into play into Dead Island 2. And I think that's where this game really shows off that type of fidelity. And it's fantastic. And what I have noticed with the combat system in Dead Island 2, though, is that it's very much similar to that of the Dead Island games, obviously, because it is a Dead Island game. It's just that, what I have noticed when it comes to the combat, it is a little bit slower than from what the original games were able to provide with the combat systems and mechanics of it. But that's basically the focus point when it comes to this game in general, because this game does provide a unique sense as to bringing some of that jankiness to a little bit in Dead Island 2. But what I'm saying is that that's what makes the original Dead Island game so great. And I think that's where Dead Island 2 makes it so great as well, in my personal opinion. But either or, I'm sure I'll probably maybe get some negative feedback on this, but it's how you actually pertain, or it's how you're actually going to understand as a content creator, such as myself, and being able to have some of that negative feedback come back, and people will say, well, I think you could have maybe said something better, maybe, or. But I think it depends on how you really deliver yourself when it comes to video content like this. So my apologies on that. I just wanted to point that out there real quick because I feel like that, but even more so though, I get a lot of really positive feedback on my stuff. But point being, we're venturing a little off topic, so my apologies as well. But when it comes to Dead Island 2, like I said, other than not putting in less than 2 hours, like I said, I am greatly impressed with this game. And this game just really provides the exploration is still there from the originals. I love the exploration that's involved. And there is inventory management a little bit, obviously, because it brings back from what the harkens back to what the original Dead Islands were able to use and pertain to that. And I think that's where Dead Island 2 really does a good job with that too, in a certain way, because it's like I said, when you have the modifications on your weapons and what weapons you want to be able to provide, and but it all, like I said, it also depends on the character that you want to create or how you're going to create with that with different types of sets of skill cards. Now I want to talk about the skill cards because this is where this game really does it differently from the original Dead Islands were not able to use, because in the original Dead Island games, those games did not pertain and really exquisitely show you how to level up in terms of the skill card system. And that's where Dead Island 2 does it really differently. And I think that's where the original Dead Islands, obviously, because like I said, they are much older titles. And while those games were still great in their own unique way, but that's where the skill card system really comes into play in this game. It really shows off of, it has to do with what type of character creation you're able to provide and how you're going to utilize your character creation in terms of, as I previously mentioned, when it comes to me playing as Jacob and be able to go in with those critical hits. And I think that's where the skill card system really provides of what Jacob's going to be able to do, and what how he's going to really create himself as a brawler to a certain degree, but with those critical hits. And it also has to do with what cards you are able to use and utilize to be more critical hit focused when it comes to playing this character. That's one thing I have greatly noticed about this, and I think that's what makes this game really stand out apart from the original Dead Islands. Now, another thing I think when it comes to a game like this, comparing it to that, as I previously mentioned, like the Dying Lights, or from that, from the original Dead Islands, is the fact it's the setting. I think the setting really fits in this type of category to a certain degree, and I think that's where Dead Island 2 really shows off Los Angeles in a very apocalyptic way, because normally I don't think I never really seen a game like this. Well, actually, a little bit. That's a little bit of a lie, because what I'm saying is that when it came to the Dying Light series, those were basic post-apocalyptic zombie games as well. That's what I'm saying. Is like when it comes to the Dead Island games or the Dying Light games, this game is no exception. It's basically the same exact type of pandemic, and I think that's where these games are so. It's the reason why these games are so highly popular. And another reason is that, other than the Dying Light games, is that these games, when it came to the original Dead Islands and Dead Island 2, which was far more exceedingly showing off as to why this game finally came out. And because, like I said, this game was in so much trouble for many years. And so they finally were able to get the publisher to publish this game and eventually get this game coming out. And I think that they really did a good job with this game so far. And I will be making a video on afterwards, after my 2 hours of play, or by completing this game as a whole, because I'm convinced I will probably be getting this game sometime soon. And this is the reason why I enjoy making these videos and coming up with my own solutions or opinions or preferences of why I think that this game is still great, other than not putting in 2 hours. But even still, it's like I really think that Dead Island 2 does a magnificent job so far as to how much I've been playing. And it's where this game is more obviously is going to be more combat focused than anything else. I mean, so you can't do stuff like you were able to do in Dying Light. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, Dead Island 2 borrows so much from what the original Dead Islands were able to use and utilize and pertain. And I think that's what makes this game so amazingly, it's pretty well thought of. And it's one of the reasons why I think that when it came to the original Dead Islands, that those games were just absolutely amazing. I love the first one. Riptide was actually, I think, was a lot better than from the first one, but overall, those first two Dead Island games were just magnificent. I thought they were really well put, were really well thought out. The combat mechanics and systems were, like I said, were janky, and like I said, there is a little bit of jank in this game as well for Dead Island 2. But other than that, it's pretty polished for how much I've played so far as well. But that's one thing I will touch base, is that I'm really impressed with what this game is able to provide in terms of the system that this game really involves with. I think the game looks beautiful to an artistic type of degree. The audio is fantastic. I think amongst that from the original Dead Islands, the soundtrack in this game is so good, and it fits the atmosphere in this game perfectly well. And that's one thing I have noticed when it comes to video games in general, or when it comes to the original Dead Islands or even Dying Light, is that these games do provide a really good audio fidelity and the quality of that audio, and then the unbecoming soundtrack in the background or in the foreground when you go into certain types of scenic moments. And that's one thing I think that what Dead Island 2 does really well as well, is the scenic moments. And that's where I'm saying is like this game really pays attention to what it does and for what it's doing, and I think it does that fairly well in terms of everything as I previously mentioned, and it's fantastic. And I don't think I have had a lot of fun with the original Dead Islands and the Dying Lights, and it greatly shows why Dead Island 2 is still so much fun, other than how much I've played. But either or, I think that this game was definitely worth the wait. I really think that this game, I really can't wait to go how much further I can go with this game and really provide my own type of sentiment of this game in general and where I want to go forward from here with this game. I think, for what I understand, that the story is kind of meh, but I don't think that's really where this game is more focused on. It's more weapon and combat eccentric, and but like I said though, I think that's what made the original Dead Island game so great, and what makes this game so great is that the story is always going to be meh or shaking my head, that sort of thing, but it is going to be cheesy, and that's one thing that what makes original Dead Islands and Dead Island 2 so great as well. I think that's where these games really fall under line and knowing what this game does or what it's doing, and that's where I say that this game really does execute that very, very well. So, in conclusion, here, I think that playing this game in 2024, I know that this game came out last year, and I think it's probably maybe almost a year. But other than that, I know that the expansions have been coming out for this game. I have not had played the expansions, obviously. I'm really looking forward to playing those as well at some point. But I really want to more focus on this game in general first, and then work on the expansions when I eventually get through those. But however, I think when it comes to even a standalone game itself, other than not playing the expansions, I think that this game is definitely worth playing, and it's fantastic. I want to touch a little bit more base, just a little bit on the combat, though. The combat, what I will say, even though you still have some of that jank from the originals, but it is much more fluid. You do get some of the obviously, you do still feel some of that heaviness from two-handed combos, from two-handed weapons. You still have the pertainment of any kind of utilization of single-handed weapons or dual or two-handed, and it really feels that way. It really does a really good job of feeling that fluidity. And like I said, I am impressed, ladies and gentlemen, and why this game, it's excellent so far. I'm enjoying myself so far of how much I've played, and so all I can say is this: do I highly recommend playing this game in 2024? Absolutely. I think if you want to play a summer post-apocalyptic game, Dead Island 2 is the way to go. I mean, you can play Dying Light or Dying Light 2 or Dead Island or Dead Island Riptide. You're still going to get that wonderful summer feeling to them. I think that's where these games really do a magnificent job in all fronts in terms of that type of concept and aspect to them. And so I just think that I want to see more games like this. I love these games like crazy, and I do like post-apocalyptic games like Days Gone, or like I said, the Dead Islands or the Dying Lights. And like I said, I will love to see another game from this company that made this game. And so that's all I got to say. But anyways, any comments or questions, please feel free to put them in the comment section below. This is Jake from Citizen JV, and you guys have a good rest of your week. And I'm hoping to make more future content here on my channel. See ya.